TV, where we're bullish on Collierville. I'm your host, David Pickler. Bull TV is a monthly show that empowers, educates, and entertains while highlighting the citizens of Collierville and the Mid-South who inspire and deliver solutions for a stronger community. Bull TV is presented by Pickler Companies. It's proudly produced by the students at Collierville High School. We invite you to watch our show at www.bulltv.show, thebullnetwork.com, and CHS TV 19. New episodes air on the second Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. Central Time. On today's show, I sit down with longtime friend and inspiration, Diane Hight, who founded Forever Young Veterans in 2006. Join us on this inspiring episode as we hear about Diane's mission to help end the silent suffering of older military veterans. In this show, we'll learn about why Forever Young honors our veterans through trips of honor and how they can help change the lives of our nation's heroes. I'm joined today by Diane Hight. Diane founded Forever Young Veterans in 2006. Her organization grants wishes for military veterans 65 years and older, which includes World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veterans. She has honored more than 2,500 veterans, that's right, 2,500, by taking them on military trips of honor to Washington, D.C., and to places where they fought like Pearl Harbor, Normandy, Italy, England, Luxembourg, and Germany. She's honored more than 700 World War II veterans with a USO-style show celebrating their service. In 2021, Diane was named one of Huck's Heroes on TBN's Mike Huckabee Show. She's been interviewed on the Rush Limbaugh Show. I'm very jealous. The Will Cal Majority, and the Dinesh D'Souza podcast. Diane was awarded the Points of Light Award by President George H.W. Bush in 2018. She is a Jefferson Award winner, which is the Nobel Prize for volunteerism at the local level. She was named by the Commercial Appeal as one of the 12 who have made a difference in Memphis in 2010. Diane is an honorary Marine and has received the National Patriotism Award from the Daughters of the American Revolution in 2012. She also received the Legion of Honor Award in 2013 from the Chapel of Four Chaplains for her outstanding sacrificial service to the community. Diane is originally from Morrilton, Arkansas, God bless Arkansas, and has lived in Collierville for more than 25 years. Raising her children there with her husband, Greg, a retired pilot from FedEx. Diane and Greg currently live in Rossville, Tennessee. She has 3 grown children and 7 grandchildren. Diane, thank you for joining us on Bull TV.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. You know, now, if you've ever watched our show, we always begin the same way by asking this really tough question. So we say, Diane, in 3 words, who is Diane Hight?
I think if you asked our veterans, they would say that I'm a leader, that I'm passionate, and that I'm loving. They do call me the little general. Mm-hmm. And I asked the veteran that gave me that title, I said, are you saying I'm bossy? And he said, oh, no, you get things done.
Well, you know, you talked about here, or we talked about in your bio, that you're an honorary Marine.
Yes.
So when you start talking about your duties, I was thinking, well, are you a general or are you a drill sergeant? Do you make them line up on the yellow footprints to stand at attention?
I tell you, taking them on the trips, it's like chasing cats, honestly.
Well, that is outstanding. So what is your favorite thing, Diane, about working and having lived for so many years here in Collierville?
I love Collierville. I love the people. And I grew up, as you said, in Marlton, Arkansas. It's just this hometown feel, and that's the way Collierville is. It reminds me of my hometown. And everyone cares about each other. And there are a lot of places that are not like that. My husband was in the military. We moved often. And most of the time, you're kind of an outsider.
Sure.
But when you come to Collierville, you're family instantly. And that's what we love so much about Collierville.
Well, having also grown up in a little town in Arkansas, you're so right. Collierville has this amazing hometown feel to it. And not only the hometown feel, but also the hometown values.
Yes.
And I mean, this truly is a city of givers. And people who really understand the quality of volunteerism. So that's why I really appreciate what you do. You and I obviously go back quite a ways.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of the fact that our law firm, the Pickler Law Firm, actually assisted your amazing organization in becoming a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. Tell a little bit about how Forever Young came to fruition. Maybe what was your inspiration to really want to make this organization happen and really move forward?
Well, I am from a military family. My father fought in the Pacific. He became an alcoholic after the war. I watched him suffer my whole life. I didn't know what was wrong with him, but our family suffered too. And I remember looking at him as a little child and thinking, what is wrong with you? I knew something was wrong with him. But as I got older, I realized he was suffering from PTSD. And World War II veterans, they didn't talk about it. And they still don't. The ones that we have, they do not talk about it. And he never did. That's where I began to see that he was suffering silently for all those years. And so when I had started Forever Young Veterans, I was shocked, honestly, because I just wanted to grant some little wishes. Because I thought, well, you know, I can get a medal for them that they never received or reunite them with a comrade. But what surprised me was how many of them are still suffering. I mean, they were suffering just like my dad. And I didn't expect that. I don't know. I guess I thought he was the only one. But there were so many of the veterans that we were working with that had become alcoholics or they had suffered in their own way. And then I realized, wow, I've really started something that I didn't expect, and I can bring healing to their lives. We had, just briefly, I want to tell you this quick wish. This changed everything for us. But we sent a Pearl Harbor survivor back to Pearl Harbor, and this attorney saw this story in the Commercial Appeal, and he called me and he goes, I've got this friend that has a wish. So I called him, and he said to me, I was at the Battle of the Bulge, and he said, we had a guy, a vet, or he wasn't a vet, an active duty soldier, in our squad. He was 40 years old, and we got captured together. And he said they had taken them to a POW camp, and he said then they could hear the Russians coming. Well, the Germans were terrified of them. And so they started marching them toward American lines because they wanted to get captured by the Americans. They didn't want to be captured by the Russians. And he said, I was trying to help him along because he wasn't doing well, and he said, I had to let him go. And he said, I heard 2 shots. And he said, I have just beat myself up every day of my life because I feel like it's my fault he was killed. And I thought, oh, well, maybe he wasn't killed. And he goes, no, if you fell behind, they killed you. And he said, I just want to find their family and just tell them how much we loved him. And so I said, well, I'm not good at finding people, but we got someone to help us, and we started cold calling. We found out the man was from Massachusetts. But as it turned out, he did make it back from the war. He spent like 2 years in the hospital. He had died in '83. I was able to bring them together with the family.
Wow.
And he called me up and he said to me, Diane, and he just kept saying, relief, relief, I have freedom from the pain. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel responsible for his death because he had made it home. And he said, if I'd only known, I would not have beat myself up. I could have been seeing him. And he just kept saying it over. I have freedom from the pain. I have freedom from the pain. And I talked to him about 2 weeks after, and he goes, I went to the high school, and I spent all day talking about being a POW, and he said, I could never have done that before. That's when I realized these men need us.
They need the healing.
They are suffering. They're not talking about it, and we can make a difference in their lives. And that's when Forever Young Veterans began healing, talking about healing. So honor, healing, and hope.
Wow, what an amazing story. So he went through that for 60 years of that feeling, that guilt, that burden that he carried, and you helped relieve him of that.
It's a miracle.
That is a miracle. I mean, and you've done that 2,500 times or more with all the
Hard to believe.
That's pretty amazing. You know, I have an uncle. My favorite uncle was a prisoner of war in World War II, and once again would never talk about it. And I knew it was a pain they carried every day of his life, and you know. It didn't stop for me a great dad or great uncle, or but he was someone that I remember every time you saw him, he would never accept a handshake. It always had to be a hug, and just amazing story. So God bless what you're doing.
Thank you.
I think this question seems a little repetitive now, but I do want to spend more time on this. Why do you think it's important that we honor our veterans?
Well, when we started Forever Young Veterans in '06, no one was honoring the older veterans. I know that's hard to believe now because we really are excited about World War II veterans now, but no one was doing anything for them. And I think because of my dad never asked for anything from our country. He was suffering every day of his life, and I just thought, they need to be honored. They've never asked us for anything. Can't we do something to bring some joy into their lives? That's why I originally just wanted to do some small wishes for them. And I just thought, I can bring some joy into their lives because they deserve it. I mean, my goodness, they saved the whole world's freedom. Can't we do something to honor them? So that's really why I wanted to do it. I just felt like they deserved it.
Well, there's no question that they deserve whatever we can do, because you're right. I mean, here we are, 80 years. It was 80 years ago we were in the midst of World War II.
Yes.
And up until, well into 1943 and 1944, we didn't know which way this thing was going to go.
Nope.
And it truly was a war for the future of mankind. And these young men, barely out of high school, or maybe not even out of high school, they went over there and they fought against tyranny.
Yep.
And they saved the world. And no, there is no debt that debt will never be fulfilled. But we certainly got to keep saying thank you every day.
Absolutely.
We've talked so much about this, and you and I have been connected for 17 years with this. But before founding Forever Young, what kind of career path were you on? Tell me a little bit about the life of Diane Hight before Forever Young.
Well, I think I've been married my whole life. But my husband was an Air Force pilot, and so we decided that I was going to stay home with our children because we were moving every 3 years. And we didn't have any extended family.
Right.
People don't realize there's a lot of sacrifice being in the military. So it wasn't like I could leave my children with my mom and go have lunch with my mom. And I mean, we were by ourselves. Of course, we had the other military comrades and friends, but it's different. And so I decided that I was going to stay home with our children because this is the way I looked at it, David. When our youngest son, who graduated from Collierville High School, when he would leave for college, I would have 30 years to pursue my career. Now, that's a long time.
It's a long time.
But see, people think that you have to have a career immediately. But the years, as you know, when you're raising your children, it's over in a flash. It's gone.
Crazy.
So that's what I did when our son Ben was a senior in high school. That's when I started for Young Veterans.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. So, what inspires you most in life?
Family.
Mhm.
I love my family. I love my children and my grandchildren. But I also, and I like my husband too. I don't leave him out. But I think as far as the work goes, when you see people's lives change, it really motivates you. And there's an excitement and an energy that comes with that. And I have some stories, and maybe I can share one or two with you before we end, of changes that we have seen in some of our veterans' lives. And they're so grateful, and they're always just thanking us. Oh, thank you for the healing I've received. But when you truly see someone's life become better, and there's healing, and they're happier, and there's closure from their pain, it's exciting.
Share with me, if you wouldn't mind, one of those stories. I know the audience would love to hear this.
Well, we got so many. One, this is one of our last trips. We had a Vietnam vet. His wife called me after we returned from D.C., and she said, I just want you to know that my husband has PTSD. And she said, he has been so difficult to live with. And she has been married to him since Vietnam.
Wow.
And she said, my children and I have suffered staying with him. She said, he has had a lock on his heart since Vietnam. She said, then we went on the trip of honor. And this trip was the key that unlocked his heart, and love came pouring in, and he's a different man.
Oh, my God.
Now, she's going to know because she's living with him.
Exactly.
And so we see things like this all the time. We had one guy that came, and he came with one of his friends, and he warned me. He said, now, he's rough around the edges. He said, I don't know if you can handle this guy. Well, I love challenges. And so I couldn't wait to get my hands on him, and I just love these men just as they are. I don't try to change them or anything. I just love them where they are and just honor them where they are. And so after the trip, I was kind of kidding him when we were on the way to the airport, and I said to him, you were a snapping turtle when you came. The thing is, by the end of our trip, he wouldn't even participate in the beginning. By the end, he was participating, he was dancing, he was just totally a different person. And so I had teased him about being a snapping turtle, and I said, now you're a purring kitten. And so we saw such a change in him. But back home, people had contacted us and said, you wouldn't believe the difference in him. And he's always sending me messages going, you know, I have a light in my life I never thought that I would have before. Or you closed that dark door of Vietnam. And when they tell you things like that, you know, I mean, I can't do it. It's just a miracle how love heals and honor heals them, and God heals them. I mean, I can't take credit for their healing, but I can do the trips, which make it possible.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, all right, you've teased us enough. You got to tell us about these trips of honor. We heard about these USO-style shows and the honoring and everything. So, take us, if you would, through a trip of honor, and really the impact. You've already talked about the impact it has on veterans, but tell us a little bit about this trip.
Well, I'm going to tell you about Normandy. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
D.C. is different. I love our D.C. trip because we're there for 4 nights and 5 days. But when you return men back to where they fought, there aren't any words for it. And a lot of these World War II veterans, we've been to Normandy 9 times, and we've been to Belgium 9 times. That's where the Battle of Bulge took place.
Right.
It's almost like when you're flying over there, in their minds, they think they're flying into World War II. They're apprehensive. But then they get over there, and they remember it as death and destruction and just total chaos. Well, we get there, and there's this beautiful restored land. And the people are so grateful. You know, you hear that people in Paris hate the Americans. Well, you get into Normandy and into France, and they're on the ground worshiping them. I mean, it's unbelievable. It shocks them because they're going, I never would have dreamed that they would be so appreciative. And little children, when we were in Italy, the children would come up and kiss their hands.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that just says so much. And
Of
it
course
just
it
brings
does.
tears to their eyes. So, you know, when we were in Normandy, grown men, and I'm talking about 50 and 60-year-old men, would just fall on their shoulders bawling and saying, thank you for saving France, thank you. And as we would be out walking around, like going from one place to another, you would hear all different, I mean, there's a lot of people there from other countries too. It's not just France. But you would hear them going, our dear liberators, our dear liberators. And it gives me chills talking about it. So they see this love and this appreciation that they're not expecting. And they say to me all the time, if you had told me this, I never would have believed it. And so when they get over there and they see where they fought, now Normandy's different. You know how America is. It changes daily. You get a Walgreens on every corner and Dunkin' Donuts. Everything is the same there, just like it was in World War II. We actually found one of our 101st Airborne foxholes.
Wow.
That he dug. I mean, that is...
The one that he'd actually had dug.
He actually had been in, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it's just amazing that when you go there, and it's so much the same. So, like when we go to Pearl Harbor, they don't recognize anything. It's changed so much. But when you go to Normandy or you go to Bastogne in Belgium, it's exactly the same. And so that brings a healing to them because they can experience it almost exactly in that manner, you know, because it brings back memories. Oh, I was here. This was my foxhole. This is what I did right here, which you don't get in a lot of other places. But when they're walking on the beach, like at Omaha Beach where they stormed, or Utah Beach, and they have their comrades with them, they will talk. You know, these men that don't talk, they will talk because they know that
I was here.
They understand each other because they both were there, or they were all there. Like when we went to the 75th of Normandy, they were all veterans that were there. And the family members would be like, oh my gosh, I've never heard this story before. I've never heard my dad talk about the war before. But when they're with each other, they will talk.
Right.
But they don't want to talk to people who do not understand. So it has really been so much fun to take them to these places, and it's painful. But you know, you have to be willing to hurt in order to heal. You have to be willing to take that step. But it is so healing, and what we see when we come back, they have a spring in their step they did not have. And so many of the family members will say, oh my gosh, my dad is so much more outgoing. He's happier. He's just like a different man. I want to tell you about W.T. Hardwick. He got captured in the hedgerows of Normandy. And he was with the 4th Infantry Division, and he went through so much. I mean, he really was tortured in ways. And he told me after we got back from the 70th anniversary, he said, I had nightmares for all these years. And he said, I would dream about being tortured in these POW camps. And he said, but guess what happened after we went to Normandy? Because, see, a lot of people might say, well, this is going to make it worse. Why would you do that? But here's what he said. He goes, you know, I still dream, but I don't dream about the POW camps anymore. I don't dream about being tortured. I'm dreaming that I'm coming home.
Wow.
And that is what you call healing right there. And when we went for the 75th anniversary, and this is hard for us to understand, one of the D-Day vets said to me, every single morning that I wake up for 75 years, he said, D-Day's the first thing on my mind. Mm-hmm. Now, isn't that hard to believe that he would be thinking about Normandy the first thing every morning of his life since that time? And you're thinking, wow, how could that even be possible? So after we came back, he called me up and he said, I just want you to know I'm free. He said, I'm waking up and I'm not thinking about Normandy anymore.
Oh, goodness.
And here these men are 95 years old.
Diane, that's simply amazing. Forever Young, obviously, huge passion for you, but not just for you. It's a huge family project. You know, obviously your son Daniel's now your director of marketing. Why is it that you believe that you've been able to share this passion and the rest of your family has also embraced the same passion that you have?
We're from a family of veterans. We know sacrifice, like with my dad. Our children grew up on Air Force bases. They know a certain amount of sacrifice themselves of not ever being with family, grandparents, and aunts and uncles and cousins. So they truly understand the value of our veterans. And so they go on their trips where we go as a family. And I've had veterans tell me how much that means to them.
Yeah.
You know, that your whole family is there. And there again, when you talk about seeing healing take place in their lives, it's kind of addictive, you know, because you're going, oh my goodness, this is so amazing to see this change in their life. Let's go on another one. Let's get another trip going. So we all share it together. And so the veterans become very close to us as a family. And so that's pretty much it. It's a passion for all of us.
Wow. Well, this may be a very hard question for you because you've done so much and you made such a difference in so many lives. But what has been the proudest moment or maybe moments of your life so far?
Probably starting Forever Young Veterans has been very important to my life because of my dad's suffering. I really loved my dad. And he was a binge alcoholic, so he had his own business, so he would work for a few weeks and then he'd be drunk for a week. You know, it's a very, very hard life like that.
Goodness.
And as he got older, it got worse. I remember that he was drunk for a month once, day and night.
Wow.
And so that's why I say we really watched him suffer, but our family really suffered too. So I think this is a way, and he died young, this is a way for me to be close to him. And the World War II veterans become my dads. They do. I love them so much. And this is a way for me to honor him. And so that is very important. I think another thing is when we went on our first trip to Normandy, I was so excited. That was a dream come true. And taking 95-year-olds to D.C. is one thing, but when you're taking them to another country, that's a whole nother ball game. And I went into our Sunday school class at church and I said, look, I've got some vets that want to go back to Normandy, but I don't want to do this if I should not be doing this. So I need a sign. I need a sign from God that I should do this. Well, I had this man call me that week and he goes, will you have lunch with me? He didn't go to our church or anything. And So I said, sure, and I had lunch, and he said, you know, I heard that you have some vets that are wanting to go back to France. And I thought, how does he know this? Veterans talk, I've learned that.
Absolutely.
And he handed me a check for $100,000.
Oh, goodness.
And he said, you take our boys back to Normandy. And I went, there's my sign.
There you go. Thank you, Lord.
And that was in 2011. And we've been to Normandy 9 times. And we're going to Normandy for the 80th.
Okay.
So we have 3 on the list right now, hopefully. We'll have some that can go with us because it's still, you know, over a year away.
How do you determine who makes these trips?
Well, we start searching for the Normandy vets, and we just hope that they can make it, you know. We have to get the word out. I mean, when you're going to Normandy, it's a lot different than going to Washington, D.C.
Right.
or to even Hawaii. Because when we go to Hawaii, it is a military trip. But see, our World War II, our Korea, and our Vietnam vets all went through there. Mm-hmm. So it's special to all of them. We take many that want to go. We do give combat vets priority.
Sure.
But we do open it up to any veteran that's over 65. So that's how it is with these
Wow.
guys. We try to find the ones for Normandy, and it's not easy, especially at this stage of the game, because they're so elderly, and so many of them cannot travel now. So I don't know how many we'll end up with for Normandy. But we are willing to take any of our veterans that need it to D.C., to Hawaii.
Great. You know, I clearly know where your heart is and what your motivation was. But you've received a lot of accolades and a lot of very, very well-deserved awards for this patriotic work that you do. How have, if at all, these awards impacted your mission as you continue to serve those who have sacrificed so much for us?
I really do appreciate the awards, and it's so nice. Mm-hmm. I think what it shows, though, is how much people really do value our veterans. Mm-hmm. We think people don't care about them, but they do. Mm-hmm. And I think when they are honoring me, really they're honoring them because they value these guys so much.
Yes.
And so it means a lot. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the organization. But I think it means more to the veterans. They get so excited when I'm recognized and the work is recognized. They truly love it.
Well, because you're shining a light.
Yes.
And you're shining a light on the work you're doing, but that then shines a light on the veterans and the reason for the work. And that is about honoring these great men and women.
Yep.
Incredible work. I want to talk a little bit about your book.
Okay.
You've recently co-authored a book, Forever Young Veterans, right here, and it is receiving amazing reviews. Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about the book and the stories that you share with us in the book.
Well, here's my dad, right
cool.
here.
Okay.
Michael Reagan did write a review on the back for us, which I was very grateful for. It has 22 stories of our veterans. They're all from this area except for one. We have a medic that lives in New Jersey that went to Belgium with us.
So we have a token Yankee.
A token Yankee. I'm always teasing him that we allowed him to be in our Southern book. But everyone else is from this area. And in fact, Cecil Brunson is in our book, a POW from Vietnam. So we have 22 stories of... They're not very long, but it's just to highlight their service. It came about because of COVID. Mike Ware, he lived in Collierville for a long time, and he had mentioned, maybe we need to do a book someday. This was in 2019, and I thought, oh my goodness, I don't have time for that. And then 2020 hit with the pandemic. And we decided this would be the perfect opportunity because so many of our veterans were living at home alone. and that really was hard on them.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking for ways to give them something to live for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we started working on that. A lot of the interviews were done over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Some did go to the home with permission of the families, and they were wearing masks and all of that. But I was surprised at how much this meant to them. So it gave them something to work on. It gave them something to look forward to. And now that it's finished, oh my goodness, they love this book. We have book signings. We're getting ready to have our third one tomorrow, but it is worth it. Even if we sold 5 books, it is worth it because of how much it meant to them to have their stories documented.